Hi English 102 students, this is Miss Alsamani, and I want us to talk about the Hamlet essay. So this is the essay that's going to focus just on Shakespeare's play Hamlet. You will want to watch the film before we go over this essay because there are some plot spoilers for the play Hamlet on this topic sheet. So if you've not finished watching the film, go back and click on the link to the YouTube version of Hamlet and watch that, and then come back to this video because otherwise there's going to be some plot spoilers in this video. So now you've been warned, and so I'm going to continue going over this essay. So this type of essay argues a point of view about Hamlet, utilizing quotes and summaries of scenes as evidence. So essentially you're just arguing your point of view about Hamlet. There's no outside sources. It's essentially what your reaction is to the film and to the characters in the play. The film is word for word from the play. So once you watch that film, you've read the entire play Hamlet. So there is a difference in quoting drama compared to other forms of literature. So I've got an example on here from Macbeth. It's on page 125 in the Seagull textbook. But essentially you'll quote from the play. Notice that there's slashes between each line from the play. Kind of like poetry. And then you'll have an act, scene, and line number. So for this example, it's Act 3, Scene 3, lines 96 and 97. So use this as an example as you're quoting from Hamlet. I would recommend having the play, it starts on page 1396 in the Norton textbook. Have it open as you're watching the film so that way you can make notes of quotes that are intriguing to you or sections of the play that you think you might want to use as evidence for your points. Or things, even if you just want to make notes in your book or next to your book on some notebook paper, that would be smart as well. There will be no rough draft for this essay. We're getting to the end of the semester, so we really don't have time to do the rough draft and peer review process on this one. But just think back on what your peers have pointed out in the past on some of your other essays and apply that to this essay. So say if you've been docked before about formatting or grammar, or maybe your thesis wasn't strong enough, go back and look at those areas of your essay and really scrutinize your own writing using the feedback you've gotten over the semester. You can look back on my grades as well, things that I've pointed out in previous essays for you, and try to use that knowledge to improve your essay so that it is a final draft without having to necessarily turn in a rough draft. The final draft is due on Thursday, July 30th by midnight in the Week 5 folder and content. It's worth 100 points and it's 20% of your final grade. Essay should be at least 800 words in length, but once you've quoted some from the play and your works cited page does count towards that word count, it shouldn't be that difficult to get to 800 words because really 500 words is like an average English 101 essay, so it's really not much longer than the English 101 essays. So formatting is the exact same as it's always been, 12-point Times New Roman font, double space with the MLA heading and style. Page 161 is the best one to check out for an example for MLA heading, page 161 in the Seagull textbook. You must have a works cited page with Hamlet cited, but the second page of this assignment already has a citation done for you. So all you have to do is copy and paste that into your essay. So I'll look over here. See, at the very bottom of the second page, you just copy and paste that at the end of your essay, and I've done it for you. So can't get easier than that, right? But you will have to have a works cited page with that cited. You will not have any outside sources. I want to emphasize that again. No outside sources. Don't look at Schmoop, don't look at Sparks notes, nothing. I want this to be 100% your opinion about the play. So that should make it an easier assignment because you're not having to do the research, but I want to make sure that you know no outside sources because plagiarism checker on the Blackboard software will catch that. And so please don't use outside sources. Here are some topic ideas that I've got listed, and this is the part where it's going to be a plot spoiler for the play. What symbols are there in Hamlet? There's a lot of symbols. Remember, symbols are things that represent something larger than themselves. So it could be a flower represents love, a skull represents death. Both of those symbols are in the play. Hamlet, one of the most famous scenes in Hamlet is when he holds Yorick's skull and talks about death and the nature of dying in the afterlife. And so that's definitely an obvious skull for Hamlet. Flowers are really symbolic of love and ophelia. especially once she's lost her mind, refers to flowers several times in the play. She really is like a flower. She was very delicate and beautiful, and notice whenever she drowns herself, she wreathes herself in flowers. And so even then, you can kill a flower by drowning it, and she drowns like a flower, taking her own life in the process. So another symbol in Hamlet would be like the crown itself. There's a lot of characters that are ambitious in this play and are seeking the crown. Obviously, Prince Hamlet, Claudius, who is his uncle, he gets the crown. And so the crown really represents kind of ambition and the willingness to do anything to become king. There's several other symbols in the play, but I think some of those are the main ones that come to mind. There's a lot of conflict in Hamlet. That's really what drives it forward, is conflict. But a lot of students like to argue that it's essentially the ghost, Hamlet's father, the old King Hamlet. He creates a lot of the conflict because it's only through knowing that he was murdered that Prince Hamlet vows revenge against his uncle. And that really drives the plot forward. Some people have argued that it's a conflict between sons and daughters and fathers. So like obviously old King Hamlet is the father of Prince Hamlet, and his death creates the plot, essentially the initial plot. But then notice also when Polonius dies, he was the man that was stabbed behind the curtain. He also creates a separate conflict for Laertes, who is the man who challenges Hamlet to a duel at the end. And then Ophelia's madness is brought on by Polonius's murder from the man that she loves. When Hamlet kills Polonius behind the curtain, Ophelia loses her mind. And so really a lot of the conflict does derive from family dynamics, essentially fathers and sons, and father and daughter with Ophelia. And so that's another argument that's pretty popular. So there's a lot of conflict in Hamlet, so I can't hit all of it, but those are some of the main ones that come to mind. Choose a character in Hamlet and point out the character's motivation, what drives the character to action. So as you're watching the play, which characters stood out to you that were the most intriguing? Obviously, Hamlet's very popular since he is our main character, but some people like to choose Ophelia or Laertes, or even I've had some really good essays about Claudius and why he was motivated to become king. Some people like to argue that he really did love Gertrude, or that he had a really rough relationship with his brother, and that's why he murdered him. And so like there's a lot of character development within this play, so just choose the character that you're most interested in and focus in on that character for this topic. There are several themes within Hamlet. Remember, a theme is just an idea that is very prevalent in literature. Pick one theme and point out how that theme drives the plot of the play. So the main theme in Hamlet really is revenge. That's one of the most popular themes. There's also love, romantic love, and family love. Death is another really common theme. Obviously, Hamlet contemplates suicide with his whole to be or not to be, that is the question, quote. There's a lot of death at the end of the play as well. It's essentially a bloodbath at the end. By the end, there's barely a character standing other than Horatio, Hamlet's best friend. And so there's a lot of themes to develop in Hamlet, but just pick one theme and really delve into it. So whichever theme stood out most to you is the one you want to choose. Ophelia's character changes throughout the play. Describe how the Ophelia the audience meets at the beginning of the play is much different than the one in the play's conclusion. What changes her? So Ophelia, when we first meet her, she is a very noble, put-together woman of her time, essentially. Very respectable. She is hoping to marry Hamlet, but is unable to because she is not a princess. She doesn't have any extra money to bring into the marriage. And so by the end, she is what's called the fallen woman, essentially. She falls from grace, loses her mind, and commits suicide. So she is a very different character, and there are some key things that switch her as a character. So that's what you would delve into if you chose that topic. And the last option, there are characters that experience similar situations in Hamlet. Pick 3 characters and point out their similarities and differences. So some of the main characters that experience similar situations, Hamlet and Laertes and Ophelia all lose their fathers. And so that impacts them all in very different ways, actually. even though Hamlet and Laertes both vow revenge on their father's murderer, Hamlet is very slow to his revenge. It takes an entire play for him to ultimately get revenge. And so it's one of those situations where he does not act as fast as Laertes. Laertes, he finds out his father's dead and he shows up in the kingdom and is ready for blood. He's ready to kill whoever murdered his father immediately. And then Ophelia, she obviously goes into an insane kind of state of mind, and so she reacts differently as well. So those are three characters that are commonly compared for this topic. Other three characters would be Hamlet, Claudius, and Fortinbras. Those are all the people that essentially want to become king of Denmark, and they go about it in very different ways. So obviously Claudius murdered his brother to become king and married Gertrude. And then Prince Hamlet wanted to become king after killing his uncle. That was his goal ultimately. He would have been the next in line for the throne. And then Fortinbras, who is, he's a prince of Norway. He's always kind of in the background, and he becomes king of Denmark at the very end just because everyone else that had a claim is dead. And so they have very different trajectories, but they all have the same goal. And so those are a couple of topic options, just to give you some ideas. The final draft late submission rule still applies. It's minus 10 points off every day late. All final drafts are graded with a grading rubric that's on the Getting Started page, and it's going to be scanned with anti-plagiarism software. So I want to emphasize again, don't use any outside sources. There's no outside sources. So do that. If you have any questions whatsoever, I know with us not having a rough draft, some students like that. Some students are nervous about not having rough drafts in peer review. So if you want to just send me an email of your rough draft, I'll give you some feedback on it. If you have trouble choosing a topic, I know this play is a very long play. I can help you choose a topic, organize your ideas, whatever you need help with, because we are at the end of the semester. And so you guys have done a fantastic job. I just sent an email earlier thanking you all for doing such good work. Essentially, you've got perfect attendance the last couple of weeks because you're doing such good hard work on these assignments. I appreciate all of you, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Thanks.